You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones, as we're going to talk about the draft that was just less than a week ago in the CFL. Training camp is right upon us. Man, maybe it's because it is getting earlier and earlier, but it does feel earlier and earlier, Sheldon.
Yeah, usually it's like when the first round of the playoffs in the NHL are done, I'm like, okay, it's pretty much go time. And so we're there, and, the Leafs just have to lose one more series, and then we're all the way there, right?
And then we're all the way there. It does feel weird.
Yeah.
We can't have training camp and the Leafs still playing. That just is not right at all.
Oh, not at all. That's right, Matt. That is right.
Before we get to our guest, Connor O'Neill, he does an OUA show during the fall covering Ontario University athletics, and he works with Canadian Football Perspective. We've brought him on to talk about the draft, some news and notes across the CFL. I think we were both a bit surprised by this one. The Edmonton Elks releasing defensive back Kai Gray. He was their most outstanding rookie nominee just 2 seasons ago, but no longer with the team, joining quarterback Jarrett Dagey on the free agent list as well.
Yeah, I thought Kai Gray was going to be one of the next, big Canadian DBs after, he had that, really good season there. So interesting. I just wonder if he just, didn't fit in with Ed Hervey or how he's running things. I'm not sure, but I assume he's going to find a team that's willing to take him on, and then he'll have a little bit extra fire to play against the Elks this next season.
Before we go any further, I will mention that Kai Gray is from Newark, New Jersey. Yes, two.
My bad. I thought he was Canadian. That's
2 seasons with the Elks and played every single game. So 36 games with the Elks in his career. Rough Rider punter Adam Korsak has retired. So what are they going to do with that position? Is that a bit of a concern for you?
I don't know. They signed a couple punters this offseason, so maybe they knew that this was something that was possible. I don't know. They haven't really said anything about it, so I don't know. But I really did like Adam Korsak as a punter. I thought he was awesome, and even at the end of the last year when he finally broke that fake punt that we've been wanting him to do with his Aussie rules football background. So yeah, I'm sad to see him go, but punters, they may be people too, but they are a dime a dozen too. So we'll find another punter and hopefully just reload the chamber.
Especially with the the global draft happening every off season as well. But the news that has CFL fans arguing with each other over the past week or so has been Bud Light being named the official beer of the Canadian Football League. I almost thought that was going to be a Bud Light in your hand, which I would have absolutely loved.
I should have done that.
I don't know. It's money for the league. My thinking is that they've probably had this deal in the works for a while. And now, what hits the fan, and it can look out of touch for some fans out there. And I understand both sides of the argument. I really do. But the biggest brewers in Canada, Molson, have a parent company that's American. Labatt, it's got a parent company that's American, and then this Bud Light is brewed in Canada. So look, beer drinkers across Canada are so fickle that it could be a great Canadian beer, and then they would complain about it because they didn't like the taste. So it's kind of a lose-lose, but I'd say a win for the league to have a brand as strong as that as the official beer of the league.
Yeah, I agree. So like you said, I agree I see both sides here, but I think when it comes down to it, Bud Light is, I believe it's the number three beer for younger, the younger kind of crowd, beer drinking crowd. So I think when I hear that, that means that the CFL is trying to target younger fans. And so the Bud Light, I think, is a good choice for that. And like you said, it is brewed in Canada. It is brewed with 100% Canadian grain, and it employs Canadians. So I understand it is perceived to be an American beer, and it I guess it is, but it is brewed here. It's like, when I go to Safeway and I pick up my Diet Coke, there's a little Canada flag next to it because it's bottled in Canada. So I get it. I was doing a little bit of research, and so as far as like a Canadian brand that would be recognized all the way across Canada, if you take away the Molson, because technically they are not Canadian anymore, it's tough. Like, you can go a Moosehead, I guess, but that's more of an East Coast beer. Even Alexander Keith's isn't Canadian anymore. Or in the West, there's Great West, or there's like Original 16. But again, those aren't.
A lot of it's very regional,
Yeah.
For example, Save on Foods does the touchdown to win, but you have people from the East not so happy because Save On's not out there.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually nationwide, just as an
exactly.
example.
Yeah, and if they can have, if every liquor store sells Bud Light, and if they're gonna have a big standee with, Nathan Rourke or Brady Oliveira or anybody like that, like holding a beer, like that would be perfect marketing for the CFL, and they're if they can get CFL cans with Bud Light Riders can, Bud Light Bombers can, that us crazy CFL people, just like the Slurpee cups from 7-Eleven, we are going to try to get them all, right? Yeah, so hopefully this is the type of marketing that is going to be attached to this deal, because again, the biggest thing is money for the CFL and just expanding their fan base.
I don't know if there has been an official beer for a while.
It's been a long, like, I remember back in the day, like Molson Canadian, and they had like I think they had the Bubba kegs for the CFL, I think. But yeah, no, it's been a long time. And I had a friend, suggest that why isn't it like Labatt Blue or something? And again, they're not owned, but when's the last time I went to a bar and I saw a guy actually drinking a Labatt Blue or something like that? Years ago. If I go to a bar now and it's not a craft brewery, I see Bud Light bottles and cans all the time.
Oh, they are all over. Like, for example, the Canadian Brew House, man, Bud Light specials non-stop there. Yeah. So
I love Corona. I wish it would have been Corona, but beggars can't be choosers. If I see a CFL, like I'm not one to buy Bud Light, like I don't, but if I go to the liquor store and I see a CFL logo on a Bud Light, I'm buying it. Sorry, I will.
Hey, it's not the strongest beer, but I tell you what, you can crush about 15 of them. That's a good day at the office.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all the same once you have 6, okay? At least that's how I feel.
The only beer I have in my fridge right now is PC beer. So.
Hey, I was trying the co-op beer last week. It was actually pretty darn good. It was
I
good.
haven't tried them.
We're gonna save money anywhere we can, man, and that's the way we do it on our beer, or just not having it.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the draft that was with Connor O'Neill from Canadian Football Perspective. Does great job covering the OUA in Ontario as well. Connor, thanks so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about the draft. It's something that, there's parts of the CFL season that I get really excited for, and this is definitely one of them. So,
well, let's dig right into some heavy lifting here, because I've seen some rumblings on X, especially from some USports alumni saying that maybe U Sports players still aren't getting all of the respect when it comes to the draft. And a lot of times the NCAA players, even if they maybe have less live game reps, are getting favored in the draft. As a former player yourself with Ottawa, I'd love to know what you think about that.
It's so tough. It's so tough. But I will point right away to the number 2 overall pick, Devin Veresuk, University of Windsor guy, straight out of the OUA. I will be honest about it. I was shocked to see him go 2. I knew he was going to be a high pick. I knew teams loved him, but 2, I jumped out of my seat for that one. I was super excited. But when you look at and the other side of the coin here, as a fan of NCAA football and U Sports football, NCAA football players and the caliber of football over there is crazy. And that's not to say that we don't have the caliber of athlete up here, but I'm talking more about the size of the talent pool. And it's just enormous over there. So yeah, I mean, and how many NCAA coaches are in the CFL, and that has a factor to it too, I think. So they're going to be comfortable pulling from those talent pools, and it's hard for me to say whether or not these guys deserve it, because I'm going to say, yeah, our guys up here in U Sports can go out there and play just as good as football as some of the NCAA guys. Look at Devin Veresuk again. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of the first round here, the first overall pick, NCAA. After that, Keelan White, Montana, NCAA. Bowling Green, NCAA. UNLV, NCAA. It's not until we get back to Jeremiah Ojo with the Toronto Argonauts that we get another U Sports pick, and deservedly so. He was one of the best defensive linemen in U Sports, but the lean still is NCAA.
Now, sort of a changing of the guard with Hamilton's defense, of course. Simone Lawrence leaving within the last few years. In a better part of the decade, he's been the leading candidate in that linebacking core. He brings so much. Now he's into the broadcasting role, so it'll be interesting to see how far he goes with that. I think he's got a great personality for it. So Devin Veresuk, going number 2 from Windsor. Were there any other picks that made you jump out of your chair just like that one?
I loved, so BC to me, I thought had for me personally, a really sneaky draft, because they had a lot of players that I really liked. Hayden Harris coming out of Montana was somebody that when I found his tape, I really was impressed with. Jackson Finley, this is a biased one for me, it's OUA, but I mean, he deserved it. He was a scouting bureau guy. He was one where when I saw him go to BC, I was like, they got a good one there. Connor Klassen, I loved Connor Klassen coming out of Regina. And then at the sixth round there, Chase Tatarn from Alberta. I thought he was one of the best linebackers in his own conference in the Canada West, but quietly one of the best linebackers in U Sports this year as well. He was a top tier tackle guy around the ball, a leader on that defense. So I think that BC really got some good draft picks this year. I was really, really happy with their draft. In terms of the guys that I loved anyways.
Obviously over the past couple of years, Winnipeg and BC have, been battling for the top of the West, and Winnipeg's been representing the West in the Grey Cup for the last little while. Do you see those teams consistently having strong drafts, and that's the reason why they're able to have consistent success?
I think so. And you mentioned Winnipeg. They got a guy in Connor Shea out of Wyoming who was a late add to this draft, but Marshall Ferguson, he rocketed him. I believe he had him in his second mock draft as the first overall pick. So that should tell you kind of what scouts were thinking of him, GMs were thinking about him. So, Winnipeg adds another playmaker there. Jalen Smith out of North Texas, playmaker. And then, I buried the lead for too long here. Taylor Elgersma, quarterback, Laurier Golden Hawks. You go out and you get the best quarterback in the country in Taylor. He's got those rookie camp invites, but man, if they can hang on to him, develop him, I am so excited to see Taylor in the blue and gold. And I know that's not what Sorry, excuse me. I know that's not what some of the teams in the West want to hear, but yeah, and it's just over the years too. Wade and I always look back in March too. We always look back at the drafts for Winnipeg, and we just go, did they really need all that? Did they really need to go out and get all that talent? And they're consistent at finding the guys through the draft. And the three that they got in the top 2 rounds of the draft, I think are going to be instant playmakers, hopefully, and future playmakers in Taylor.
Well, I guess let's talk a bit about Elgersma, because there's always rumblings, with Zach Collaros and the injuries that he has sustained over his career. He got a little bit more protection in Winnipeg, so it's extended his career a little bit more. But it seems like a pretty good situation for Elgersma to go into and to be under the tutelage of a guy like Zach Collaros. Obviously, they did release what's his name, Sheldon? He was Jake Dolegala. There we go. So I mean, yeah, he does have the mini camp invites, but it does seem like a pretty darn good situation for him to be in Winnipeg.
I would think so, especially if you're picking him at 18. That's meaningful to me. That tells me that you want him on your roster. You want him to be kind of the guy when Zach Collaros is ready to move on. And I really do think that's best case scenario for Taylor to come in and learn from a guy that's been around the league. He's had to battle to get a starting spot here, taking his bumps and bruises, but has been on top of his game there with Winnipeg for the last, how many years does it feel like? 100 now? I mean, goodness, yeah, right? So
we know.
I know. I don't have to tell you guys, but yeah, that's a great spot for him to land. And I think Toronto is kind of a little upset about that one, because he's been he's been their guy through the quarterback program, right? So I think they were kind of wanting to get him they've had him in the development quarterback program with USports that they do. So I certainly thought Toronto had their eyes on him, and but it's a great spot for Winnipeg to come scoop him up there at 18.
Yeah, so we talked about Elgersma, so let's talk about the other quarterback.
Yes.
Big one who got drafted to Saskatchewan, Rourke, in the third round. Yeah. What do you actually think his prospects of, sticking with the NFL, sticking with the 49ers? I know that they do like to develop their quarterbacks there, so probably a good spot for him. But what do you kind of see his prognosis for a possible CFL career down the line?
I think it's strong. I think it's high. He's got his brother to talk to and lean on, somebody who's already been through this process, and Nathan's gone over and come back. So he's gonna obviously encourage him to take his shot in San Francisco. And I think anyone in their right mind would, and it's a great spot for him. They develop quarterbacks well. He proved his worth in a tough Big Ten conference, and he was a darn good quarterback in one of the toughest conferences in American college football. So I think he does deserve that shot in the NFL. But if it doesn't work out, what's not to stop Nathan from saying, we've got a great league up here, and I've had a lot of success in this league up here, and it's a great game to be a part of. The communities are amazing. You got drafted to one of the best communities in the CFL, if not the best community in the CFL in the Roughriders, and I know that if he gets there, there's going to be support or criticism if he's not doing well, right? So with expectations, that kind of is the flip side of that coin. But I think he's gonna take his shot in San Francisco, but if it's not working out, he can come back and get game time reps in the CFL, hopefully. And if he wants to take a shot, great. If somebody picks him up after he's come up here and done things, why not? But I think take that shot in San Francisco, and then talk to Nathan and come up here and do your thing if it's not working out.
Yeah, especially since, Trevor Harris, you don't know how many. I know he said he's wanted to play for like 5 more years if he could, but
he's going to play as long as he can keep playing. He never wants to get off the field.
Well, I hope so. He's, if he would have played all 18 games last year, I think it would have been a little different story.
Absolutely.
So earlier you mentioned that BC had a sneaky draft, and so that's pretty interesting with them, losing the 2 picks due to going over the SMS there. But what do you think the team, or which team had the best draft for what they needed versus what they actually got to draft, and then depending on like if they had futures picks or ones who you see actually slotting in right away?
I'm not sure if it's overall the best draft, but I will say I thought it was a really, really strong draft with the Ottawa Red Blacks. Getting Keelan White right off the bat, I think he's a guy that's going to come in and, be an instant playmaker almost for them. He's speedy. He's going to be, that I think he can really come in and be kind of that Jalen Acklin type. I think he's going to be a slot guy, make some plays, get in space. He was great at Montana. Like, I would highly encourage anybody to go look at the Keelan White Montana tape because it is super, super impressive. Samuel Carson, the offensive lineman from Louisiana Monroe, 6'5", 270 athletic road grader. He's going to come in and, I don't know if he's going to get a look right away, but to have a solid second offensive lineman, rotational offensive lineman if you need it, offensive line depth in the CFL in any football league actually is never a bad thing, right? Like, trench depth is kind of how you win games down the road. It's tough for offensive lineman, defensive lineman, any player really to play 21, let alone 25 weeks if you're going deep, right? So I love that Sam Carson pick. Eric Cumberbatch, biased one for me, but incredible defensive back out of the University of Ottawa. He is rangy, he's athletic, he's a great playmaker. So I think, and another guy that got a minicamp look, with the Saints. So again, that tells me that teams are thinking highly of him. And then Ethan Jordan, Elgersma's best friend out of Laurier, another guy that hopefully you can develop and work with and get him on the field in some way. But yeah, I thought Ottawa had a really strong draft for what they got. There's a lot of talent there, a lot of guys that you can work with as well and develop for the future of your franchise.
Now, I don't know when you were born, Connor, but I feel like it might be time for us to pour out a drink because this is probably the last draft where some players that were born in the 1990s get drafted. There were 2 with 99 birthdays. So wow, time's flying, man.
Yeah, no, I was shocked when I looked down and I was like, oh, yeah, these guys are all the same age as my younger brother now, who's like 6 years younger than me. So yeah, that was shocking for me. I was like, dang, I'm getting up there.
I do want to ask you about Edmonton's draft here. They're definitely in a rebuild phase, but their top pick is not going to be able to sign a CFL contract for a year. Darien Newell out of Queens, I guess some substance, a banned substance there, so he's not going to be able to be with them until 2026. But apparently they knew that this might be coming down the pipe. Were you still a bit shocked to hear this news?
I was shocked to hear the banned substance news. Yeah, I didn't know that they had gotten some wind that it might be a thing. So that's also news to me. I hadn't seen that yet. But yeah, that's it. I don't know if teams, to me, that's a weird one because if teams caught wind of this, why spend the round 2 pick on him? But he is a talented, I mean, we all saw what he did at Queens. He's a darn talented defensive lineman. I guess that's why they went in the 4th round and kind of got his counterpart in Silas Hubert. You get the 1-2 punch in both of Queens' best defensive linemen from the last couple of seasons. But yeah, that's a bit of, if you know that's coming, it's a bit of a head scratcher to me to go get him in round 2, unless other teams were also trying to snag him in round 2. But yeah, I don't know. He is a talented player. If you think you can work with him or send him programs so he can work out on his own and kind of stay and get ready for the 2026 season, sorry. I don't know. Yeah, that's a weird one to me if they got some wind of that then. But at the time I thought, when he got drafted, I was like, darn, that's a pretty solid pick for the Elks. And then the news broke and I was like, oh shoot, because I know that throughout the season, just getting to watch him here, I'm in the Kingston area here where Queens is located at, so I kind of got to see his progression over the last few years, and I know he's a pretty hard worker, so I was a little shocked when I saw the substance thing, but hopefully you can stay in game form and get ready for next season because he's a heck of a talent. But yeah.
No, on the other hand, I look at Edmonton's roster when it comes to D-line, and about half of Toronto's D-line is now going to Edmonton, and we know what Toronto did last year. So Jared Brinkman, Jake Serezna is back in Edmonton. Robbie Smith gets a nice little contract to go to Edmonton as well. Jonathan Kongbo, he's, I think people kind of looked at him. He has talent. He hasn't quite made it happen in the CFL yet, but Sam Acheampong as well. So maybe the Elks have a little bit of patience with certain things like that. And I've noticed just anecdotally, like even Saskatchewan, they seem to be a team that's okay with drafting players that they might not see for a few years. Have you noticed that with certain teams here too?
Yeah, I think so. I think there has been a trend, like you say. Saskatchewan jumps out to me as one of those teams that is okay to draft guys that they might not see for a little while. His name's escaping me right now, but I don't know if it was last year or the year before. They drafted a defensive lineman pretty highly that they weren't sure if he was going to come here or not. They go out and they do that with Kurtis Rourke this year, maybe even Ali Saad from Bowling Green. Does he stick as a depth player in the NFL, or take a practice contract or practice roster contract in the NFL? Why not? But then you get a guy like Eric Anderson, who out of Western was one of the best linemen in the OUA. I think that he's going to be a guy that you can keep on your roster and develop. But Saskatchewan certainly, I think, over the last few years has jumped out at me as a team that's okay to kind of let guys develop or draft guys that they might not see on this side of the border for a few years. They're the big one to me, I think. And they've done it again a little bit this year with some of their picks. But I think they've also backed it up with some picks that they're hoping to keep.
It's an interesting way to build a team. I mean, if you continually do it, then if you're doing well, if you're struggling, then it's probably not the best move. But they've been trending up for a little while. Were there any teams that puzzled you with their picks a little bit in this draft?
I wouldn't say all of their picks, but I certainly wasn't expecting Damien Alford to go first overall to Calgary. That was the one that I was kind of like, whoa, okay. But then, they go out and they get Chris Fortin at 8, and I think he's a really good offensive lineman out of Connecticut. Again, Quincy Vaughn, that one I was kind of like, okay, big 6'4" tight end, but he's a tight end, and we don't often use tight ends as a traditional tight end set in the CFL. And is he going to come in and be comfortable playing that H-back position? Jake Burt springs to mind for me from Hamilton, and true tight end guy that, I don't know, they drafted first overall and didn't really want to come in and assume that H-back role. So is Quincy Vaughn going to take over that H-back role? We'll see. But then in the third round, they go with a guy that I really love in Anton Hay, but he's a 5'11" DB, and how are you going to use him in the CFL? Is he going to be a teamer? I think he was really, really good for Laval at the USports level. So I'm excited to see maybe how they work with him. They go and get Nicky Farinaccio from Montreal. Again, a guy that more or less is probably going to work his way onto teams, much like a Fraser So pick. That's really what springs to mind with Farinaccio for me. And Vishon Janusis out of Guelph. They hit success with a Guelph receiver by the name of Clark Barnes there, who's become a darn good playmaker. So they go back to the Guelph well, and I think that's going to work out for them. But yeah, I think Calgary had a lot of picks, and I think they could have gone a lot of directions, but certainly the ones that stood out to me were Damien Alford at 1 and Quincy Vaughn in the second round as well.
Now, I look at last year and the way it started. So many Canadians were like dominating all over the place. Justin McInnes in BC, Tyson Philpott before he got hurt in Montreal, and then we also had Kevin Mattel for Toronto. He scores a Grey Cup touchdown in his rookie year. So these guys are making impacts early in their career. They're not just on special teams or buried in those old cliche positions where we don't see them touching the ball. Do you see anybody in this draft class with the situation that they've been drafted into that will be able to make an impact right off the bat with their respective team?
In terms of the wide receiver position,
or
just
anyone
overall?
It could be, it could be even defense. We don't give them enough love,
Yeah, wide receiver for me this year, I think there were some good picks, but overall, last year for me, that wide receiver class, that Canadian wide receiver class was with Mattel was like pretty strong for me. This year I do really believe in Devin Veresic, and I'm going to go back to that Windsor well, but he's a guy to me that I think really could find somewhere on the field. He could work his way onto the field. He's a darn talented guy. He was getting all kinds of NFL looks, NFL interest going into their draft processes. But Devin Veresic, I watched a lot of his tape coming out of Windsor. He's a guy that has really impressed me, and typically Canadian linebackers kind of come in and play that will spot, right? So can he battle for that will position? I certainly believe so. I really believe in his abilities. He's got prototypical, size and speed for the CFL, I think. He's a 6'2", 240 guy. I think he's really got a shot to come in and, maybe he's not going to start right away, but he's definitely going to be making impacts from that will position. And again, the Canadian game, there's so much space, rotation, and depth is so important. So I think Veresic's really going to have a shot.
So the draft is in the books, training camp's right around the corner. I know you focus a lot on OUA football. So are you taking most of the summer off, or what are you going to be watching before the university football gets underway later this summer?
Oh, no, I'm a big CFL fan, so I'm going to be following the CFL. I'm going to be following the CFL all summer long, especially the draft class guys. Like, my favorite thing to do is kind of take the draft class game by game, week by week, see who's in, see who's out, see who's getting reps. And I'm really interested to see how the Canadians compare to the NCAA guys. I think that's something that I'm really going to be watching and tracking this year is, who's getting in and where are they making these impacts. So I think that's going to be my summer project this year, is tracking and comparing the progress of the NCAA draft guys to the USports draft guys. It's kind of inspired by you guys, so I appreciate that. So I'll keep you guys tagged on that one for sure.
Nice. I do appreciate that. Like, sometimes I see the tracking that some of you guys are doing at Canadian Football Perspective, and it kind of makes my eyes go crossed and wonder how you follow and keep track of all that. It is impressive. So Canadian football fans across the country are appreciating what you guys are doing, and thank you so much for coming on the show today to talk about some of that.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. I think I've been following you guys for a while now, so it's really fun to jump on and be a guest of something I've been following for a little bit here, and I appreciate all you guys do, everybody does for the CFL USports community. I think the more people that we have talking about this great game, the better, right? So it's just I'm really appreciative to have the time here to jump on and ramble on about the Canadian draft, because it's fun for me.
Thanks again to Connor O'Neill for coming on 2 and Out to wrap up the draft that was, and I guess this officially marks it, Sheldon. Over the next little while, we'll be doing previews, getting people ready getting ourselves ready too, for the 2025 CFL season. It's an exciting time as we start to go through all the teams, kind of recap the offseason that was, the departures, the additions. Man, it's an exciting time.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be a busy time, but it's exciting. I can't wait to sit down and talk with all the people we're going to talk to about each individual team, and it's going to be great.
All right, man. So cheers. I haven't had time to run out and get myself a Bud Light yet, but raise it in the air. Maybe I should have some for the next pod. If there's a CFL can, I'm going to have to buy some of those, that's for sure. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of 2 and Out. I'm Travis Currah. He is Sheldon Jones. You can rate, review, and subscribe to 2 and Out on your favorite podcatcher and on YouTube as well. We're actually nearing 700 subscribers. So if we get up to 700 before the season, that would be pretty darn cool. So thanks for joining us for this ride, and we'll go for another ride together on this upcoming CFL season.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.